one of the things that was really interesting is that we had essentially real-time analytics around traffic, and so we could see what kinds of stories people were responding to, where our traffic was coming from, and we could see that, for example, that the more stories we posted per day, the more our traffic went up. We also got a good understanding of, and Engadget was the first blog to start publishing 24 hours a day. It's a long time ago, but we were the first. And one of the things that we did was we realized, times of day we needed to be posting. We also got a good understanding of what kinds of things we needed to be spending our time on. So Engadget, was a blog, and so we did a lot of, blogging about the best content and best things that other people were writing about. I mean, that's sort of what a blog does, right? Is you would go and say, hey, there's a great review of over at the New York Times right now, or there's a new product that's announced, like that kind of stuff. But because we didn't have any constraints on length, we could also go really, really deep. And so we would have this sort of mix of, to me, the mix at the time, and I would say it would be different now because of how the web has changed in the past, 12 years since I started Engadget. But at the time, what we focused on was give people a reason to keep coming back to the site every hour. And we saw that some people were coming back 10, 12, 20 times a day. And so we would try to have fresh content every time that they would hit the page. And it didn't have to be a lot. It just had to be a quick little blog post, not maybe more than a couple hundred words. Let them, show them something cool, something interesting, an interesting new product, and try to be smart and funny about it, but don't talk down to the audience. Recognize that the audience is really smart, and you kind of want to write up to their level rather than down. And we saw that the audience really loved that. But then we'd also do, really in-depth features which people would want to share. So go and do a 10,000 word interview with Bill Gates, for example. And that's totally different than a 100-word blog post. But the mix of the two gave people a reason to keep. What would happen is that people would discover the site through a Bill Gates blog post, and then the daily sort of churn of posts every hour, every half hour, every 20 minutes at some point would keep people coming back. It would give them something that they would sort of get hooked into and excited about, and recognize that realize that this is something where it's not just about that one story. It's about having a site that they can keep coming back to as frequently as they want to learn something new.
So from what I understand, you're really saying that the key ingredients were frequency, and then the quality and the relevance to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we found. We found through looking at the data we were getting, which was that frequency of posting helped. There almost wasn't you almost couldn't post enough. Obviously, my benchmark was we want to post as many things per day as we think are worth posting and no more. And that was it. So I said, we're not doing it clickbait. We're not going to just post things to post things. We're going to post everything that we personally find interesting and we personally would want to read about. And and I am like big gadget nerds. And so, fortunately, like I was the kind of person who, if there was a new phone or a new laptop, like I wanted to know about it. I wanted to read about it. I still do. And, right now I'm really passionate about VR. And so if there's any new game or any new headset or anything like that, I want to know about it and I want to read about it. And so, that was our approach was posting a lot. Obviously, again, in the 12 years since I started Engadget, there's been a lot of other sites have followed that model, and now maybe we have the sort of avalanche of content that can be a little bit this fire hose of content that can be a little hard to keep up with. But again, at the time, it was a different web, and people weren't really doing what we were doing. I mean, I used to post personally as much as 30 to 35 times a day. I'd write posts myself. In the first 15 months of Engadget, I personally wrote 5,000 blog posts.
And when you're approached by someone saying, I need seed money or I need, like a capital raise, can you share a little bit about how you not necessarily decide, but how you gauge the level of effectiveness the business is going to have? Is there kind of a criteria you look at, like the team or the revenue built to date, the MVP?
Yeah, I mean, we really care a lot about product. So that's sort of the first thing that we look at. Definitely product and founders. Revenue is, especially at seed stage, either revenue is not there or it's too early you don't want to, you can't really extrapolate too much from revenue at that really early stage. So the thing I always say is that you want to have the product, the business model, and the user acquisition strategy to all sort of harmonize or line up, and so that whatever you're going to build, that that the product is something that is, either if it doesn't have product market fit, it is plausible that it will get product market fit, and then if it does get product market fit, they have a way to acquire users that is in sync with their business model. So if you are Candy Crush and you know how much you're going to make from users buying in-app purchases and power-ups and that sort of thing, then you can go out and spend money on advertising and things like that to acquire those users, right? You can kind of, or again, if you are a business that sells things, or you are Uber and you know that the average person that you sign up as a customer is going to go spend $300 with you this year, you can go and spend $50, $60, $70 to acquire them as a customer, because over time you'll make that money back. If your business model is ad-based and the average value of a user is pretty low because you need a lot, it's more that you're going to get millions of users and make a little bit from each one, then you can't spend that much money on user acquisition, which means you have to have a user acquisition model that gets you users for free, basically. And that means viral. That means something that people drives via strong word of mouth, or has some sort of viral loop where people get their friends to join up. And if you look at Twitter, for example, or Facebook, those are classic examples of, people would go and get their friends to sign up for those products because they were better when your friends were on them. And so that's why we look at, my sort of model is, you want those three things to line up. And so you want to have a product that's good. You want to have a product that you believe in, right? That you think has something really special or has a lot of potential. You want to have, they don't have to be making money. In fact, they don't have to necessarily make money for a while, but there has to be some sort of model that makes sense. And then you have to be able to see, how are they going to be able to get users? How are they going to get people to use this? And so I'll sometimes see people that, are presenting a social mobile product, but their user acquisition model is to go out and pay, like a Candy Crush. And you just have to say, that's just not going to work. And the temptation is, especially when you're trying to raise money, is to try to goose your numbers and go and spend 10 grand and go out and get some users and sort of show that the curve is going the right way. And when you poke in, to the numbers, and I'll say this doesn't happen that often, but occasionally does happen, where you kind of push them a little bit and then they tell you, yeah, we've been doing paid acquisition. And you just say, well, this is not going to work. You have to have something that makes people want to use the product. And so, so I think that's why, we care a lot about there not being something that is going to break in the product, so to speak, like that. I don't mean like specifically in the product, but break in the business. And so you also want founders that, are really passionate about what they're doing. They're doing things because they are excited about this problem. One of the things I wrote on my blog a few months ago is this idea of, you really want people who are in love with a problem, so to speak, rather than a product. And so sometimes you'll see people, they go and they spend 5, 6 months, a year building something, and it's really cool and it looks nice, but it's not something that many people want to use. And they've invested so much into the product that they keep trying to find different problems for it to solve.
Instead of building it the other way around, ultimately.
Exactly, you want to build it the other way around. And I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, right? But generally, you want people that have a problem they want to solve, and then they're just going to keep trying to build different things that solve that problem until they find the right thing. That's why I keep going back to the product market fit thing. There's two ways to solve product market fit, right? One is you have a product and you keep trying to find a market. The other is you find a market and you keep trying to find a product. One of those tends to work out a little bit better than the other, in my experience.